Hello there. Thank you so much for joining us. My name's Eric McKay, and this is News Channel Nebraska. Let's take a look at our top headlines today. The Nebraska legislature set for a major vote when it comes back into session on Tuesday. The vote is on LB 307, a bill known as the Safe Needles Act. It would allow pharmacies and public health services to provide safe syringes and needles to drug users in order to limit the spread of diseases. The bill drew bipartisan support. A nearly unanimous 37-2 vote passed it on Friday. The bill was introduced by Senator Megan Hunt. She says the aim is to help communities control the spread of diseases like HIV. But Governor Jim Pillen vetoed the bill, saying the sources in the bill don't pertain to the opioid crisis. The senators will attempt to override that veto on Tuesday. A move underway in Lincoln, meanwhile, to add more time behind bars for any driver convicted of unintentionally killing someone. Joe Jordan tells us about one family that insists that change is long overdue.
On this lonely stretch of road in northwest Douglas County, just outside Omaha, 47-year-old Dr. Matthew Lataka was killed while riding his bike. Charged with misdemeanor motor vehicle homicide is 63-year-old Dale Timecodes, accused of hitting the cardiologist from behind last September. At most, he's facing a year in jail and a $1,000 fine.
And I am the widow of Dr. Matthew Lataka, who was tragically killed by a distracted driver.
Kim Lataka testifying recently in favor of legislation.
It cannot be that
legislation pushed by Millard Area State Senator Kathleen Kauth that would take motor vehicle homicide from a misdemeanor to a felony and increase the penalty from 1 year to 2 years behind bars.
Distracted driving is 6 times more deadly than driving drunk and carries a 400% increase in the likelihood of an accident, yet the law views these differently. Is it worse to be drunk than to be on your phone or eating or simply not paying attention? Negligence, which results in the death of an innocent person, should carry a stronger penalty than a $1,000 fine. For comparison, theft of over $1,500 worth of merchandise is a Class 4 felony. Nebraska law has a stronger penalty for stealing a TV from Nebraska Furniture Mart than it does for killing a cyclist with a car.
Timecodes is due in court later this week for a plea hearing. As for the legislation upping those criminal penalties, it appears unlikely the bill would pass this year. In Omaha, Joe Jordan, News Channel, Nebraska.
In international news, President Joe Biden says the U.S. military is building a temporary pier in Gaza as part of a multi-nation plan to bring some much-needed support to the war-torn region. This, as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he will move ahead with plans to invade Rafah in South Gaza. John Lawrence has more.
Monday marks the start of the holy month of Ramadan for most Muslims. But over the weekend, Israeli strikes hit parts of southern and central Gaza, killing scores of people and injuring others, according to the Palestinian news agency.
We've got to make our way to that path that leads to peace. I think the president is leaning in hard, pushing Netanyahu to do this, and it couldn't happen sooner.
President Joe Biden says while Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has the right to defend his country from Hamas,
he must pay more attention to the innocent lives being lost as a consequence of the actions taken. He's hurting, in my view, he's hurting Israel more than helping Israel.
Netanyahu defends his policy in Gaza and says he's unclear about Biden's comment on the matter.
If he meant by that I'm pursuing private policies against the majority, the wish of the majority of Israelis, and that this is hurting the interests of Israel, then he's wrong on both counts.
In a White House statement released Sunday night, President Biden said, quote, "The suffering of the Palestinian people will be front of mind for many. It is front of mind for me."
So I'm challenging the Biden administration today to clear this up. You cannot allow Hamas to stay in power. You can't allow them to have 6 brigades to do October 7th again.
I'm John Lawrence reporting.
Advocates for those suffering the effects of long COVID say they feel, quote, sucker punched, end quote, by new CDC guidance. The CDC recently announced that people no longer need to isolate for 5 days and can return to regular activities, even with mild improving symptoms and just 1 day after a fever. But some advocacy groups say the CDC is abandoning its mission to protect Americans' health.
We don't want anybody else to have to go through what we're going through. So the entire community of millions of people are just sucker punched right now by these recommendations.
Urquiza notes more than 1,000 Americans still die from COVID-19 each week. She says despite the new health recommendations, advocates are pushing to establish COVID remembrance days.
These types of changes attempt to undermine the severity of what we continue to face. So it's critically important that we do as much as we can to keep this on the forefront of people's minds.
Health officials say the recommendations reflect the progress that's been made in fighting the virus. They say people should still use common sense to protect themselves and others, including staying home when sick. President Joe Biden signed a package of 6 government funding bills into law over the weekend. That averted a partial government shutdown. The Senate voted late Friday to pass the bills hours before the shutdown deadline. In a statement, the White House thanked congressional leaders from both parties for their leadership in getting the bills to the president's desk. The package includes funding for several departments, including agriculture, commerce, transportation, and the FDA. Now, lawmakers have to finalize another set of funding bills before March 22nd in order to keep the rest of the government funded. Now, AAA says the national average for a gallon of regular gas climbed to $3.40 a gallon on Friday. That's a 4-month high. Nebraska's below the national average, $3.17, still 13 cents higher from a week ago and 31 cents higher from a month ago. It is down from this time last year, though. Experts say there's no reason to panic about gas prices, at least not yet. They always rise this time of year as the demand for fuel goes up once winter ends. It's also the end of cheap winter fuel and the switch to the more expensive summer fuel blend. This year's late winter jump in prices has been boosted by troubles at refineries, with extreme cold back in January knocking some refineries offline. A program in eastern Nebraska helping to fix up old homes and redevelop their town block by block. The Greater Fremont Development Council has put together the Fremont Home Fund. It's made up of public and private dollars. The $1.5 million pool is set aside to renovate existing homes or develop vacant properties for owner-occupied housing. The fund offers loans at 3 to 5%. That's lower than most home buyers can find right now. Applicants can be nonprofits or private citizens. One of those nonprofits, Rebuilding Together Platte Valley East, has been formed with a goal of targeting first-time home buyers. Fauner Park says they had to cancel their last 5 races on Saturday because of an internet problem. Fauner Park CEO Chris Kodalak said the park had to cancel the races because the system they use to process wagers and payouts went offline. There were reports of the same thing happening at racetracks all over the country. The system did come back online Saturday evening. Fauner Park staff worked overnight to repair the betting terminals. As of Sunday, the races were back on as normal. Kodalak said anyone who held a ticket for any of those canceled races on Saturday is eligible for a refund. Well, Nebraska found itself square in the middle of the last solar eclipse visible in the U.S. back in 2017. Now, there's another opportunity to witness the phenomenon on April 8th. But to see it like we saw it 7 years ago, you'll have to leave the state. Jen Sullivan talks to a travel expert about where to go and the best way to experience it.
Do you still have those special solar eclipse viewing glasses? You may have another opportunity to use them. On April 8th, a total solar eclipse will be visible to millions of people in North America, 32 million in the U.S. alone.
I saw the last solar eclipse, and there is really something magical.
Expedia travel expert Melanie Fish says this eclipse will be visible in more areas than the Great American Eclipse in 2017.
This time, the solar eclipse covers a much more populated path of totality. So that means a lot more people are going to have a chance to see it.
A solar eclipse is when the moon passes between the sun and the earth, casting a shadow on the earth that fully or partially blocks the sun's light, creating darkness like this during the day. Mexico's Pacific coast will experience the total eclipse first. Then the path enters the U.S. and goes up to Newfoundland, Canada. People in 15 states will be able to view the phenomenon, and lodging is already in high demand.
Availability is getting tight for hotels to stay in and vacation rentals in the path of totality.
This year's rare sight falls around spring break, which is already a popular time to travel. So book accommodations, flights, and car rentals now. For those who have the week off, Fish suggests planning an entire trip around the solar eclipse. So pick a place where there are other things to see and do. Most importantly, plan ahead.
Don't just wing it and hit the road and say, I'm going to drive to wherever the eclipse is.
For Consumer Watch, I'm Jen Sullivan.
A promise should never be broken. That's the mentality of a New Jersey man currently making his way across the country on foot. We met up with Jim Hickey as he made his way through Nebraska last week to keep his promise to a girl fighting cancer.
A man who has spent the last 26 years walking across the country for cancer awareness is keeping his promise by finishing a walk in Nebraska despite battling cancer himself. The man's name is Jim Hickey, a 62-year-old from New Jersey who has been going on walks across the United States for cancer awareness. His mission started after feeling compelled to do something after seeing members of his own family fight battles with cancer. So in 1998, Hickey quit his job, sold his car, gave up his apartment, and began walking, all to bring awareness to cancer. Specifically, he is trying to focus on pediatric cancer. When asked why he has continued to walk these last 26 years, Hickey said there is no answer and that he just feels compelled to continue walking.
I have to. I said, I don't know why. If I can't explain it to myself, I can't explain it to you. And that's one of the things about it. I mean, common sense says, okay, it's over, you've done enough. But I can't help but continue, and I don't know what's pushing me, but I have to.
Now, 9,000 miles later, Hickey is currently walking for 8-year-old Patience Hansen. At just 3 years old, Patience was diagnosed with medulloblastoma, a form of cancer that is affecting her brain and spine, back in 2019.
It was a long journey. It was long. It was so long. It felt forever. She is in remission. She still has the tumors, but they're not growing.
Hickey started a walk for Patience in September of 2021, intending to make a 500-mile journey to the other side of Nebraska. However, as he made his way through the Cornhusker State, Hickey realized something was wrong. Stopping by clinics, Hickey was told that he was likely experiencing symptoms from cancer, and while he tried to push on with the walk, to his frustration, Hickey realized he needed to put the walk on pause.
So I had to leave the road, which bothered the hell out of me. You know, I didn't finish what I said I would do, and I made that promise that I would make the whole walk, and I wasn't able to do it. So when I left the road, I promised her and her mom that one day I'm going to get back on the road and I'm going to finish this walk.
Hickey was later diagnosed with kidney cancer and bladder cancer, the latter of which he is still battling. Despite these setbacks, Hickey was determined to keep his promise to patients, no matter how long it took him to be able to do so.
You break a promise to an 8-year-old girl with brain cancer, and that's a one-way ticket to hell. You know, so I'm here now. You know, so I'm keeping that promise to her, which I'm just thankful and blessed that I can.
That dedication to his promise is not lost on Patience's family, who has nothing but praise for Hickey.
You know, after 2 years, Jim and I still kept in contact. You know, he is kind of part of our family now, you know. He is a very special guy, you know. It's truly amazing that he is going to finish this. Not for just Patience, but for our family. And
once he finishes his walk in Nebraska, Hickey will have surgery for his cancer. Hickey says he knows he will have to stop walking at some point, but is already planning further dedicated walks for others with pediatric cancer once he gets on the road again. With their daughter now in remission, Patience's family is encouraging others to donate to other pediatric cancer causes, especially if they are children in your local area. Reporting from Columbus, Ryan Pat T, News Channel Nebraska.
You can stay up to date with the very latest by following us online. Head to newschannelnebraska.com and click on the News tab there. You can also follow us on X, like us on Facebook and Instagram as well. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great day. You're watching News Channel Nebraska.